Today we'll be firing twice for you. People taking pictures. If you miss the picture the first time, you get a second chance. What you have is a 3-inch ordnance rifle. It's one of your standard Civil War artillery pieces. About a third of both the Union and Confederate armies had this very same 3-inch ordnance rifle. It's made out of wrought iron. A very strong cannon. During the entire course of the war, only one case of a 3-inch ordnance rifle exploding. So it's a very reliable gun. What you have is called a detachment. A detachment consists of about 8 cannoneers, plus a gunner and a chief apiece. You have the cannon. Behind it you have a thing called a limber. This is the prime mover. This is how you carry the cannon across the field. The limber would be pulled by a team of 4 to 6 horses, and you simply spin it back and hook up the back of the cannon on the back of the limber. That's how you haul it from place to place. On the top of that limber you have an ammunition chest. An ammunition chest would carry your ready service ammunition for this cannon. It would be 50 rounds, combination of solid shot, shell, case shot, and canister. One gun you see before you would be a detachment. What you don't see behind you is another limber pulling a thing called a caisson. That's another wagon that gives you 3 more ammunition chests. So when this cannon goes into combat, it carries 200 rounds of ammunition. Okay? With the caisson, you're going to have about another 7 or 8 cannoneers and drivers on your horses, and these folks will be rotated on the crews. So every man is cross-trained to fill any other position. All this together, the detachment, the caisson, be called a platoon commanded by a sergeant, the chief of piece. 2 of these together would be a section commanded by a lieutenant. And then if you have 2 or 3 sections of 4 or 6 guns, that's a battery commanded by a captain.
You don't need to get them shooting. You just go after they're all done, go up and closer.
After we fire the first round, we'll talk a little bit about ammunition, and then we'll do a load by detail, so you'll see what each cannoneer does, and then we'll do the second firing demonstration for you. And once that's clear, you're welcome to come down and take a closer look at the cannon and take all the pictures you want. We'll answer any questions you may have.
Okay, that'll be better. I don't know. There's no point.
See the smoke.
They will pop.
This 3-inch ordnance rifle would fire a 9-pound projectile about 2.5 to 3 miles.
Wow.
Now, a lot of people ask, well, geez,
that's unbelievable.
why? That's kind of short range, isn't it? Well, most of your engagements would be a mile or less because there were no forward observers like you have in modern artillery. The gunner has to be able to see that round as it fires and goes down range, see where it impacts, and so he can make his adjustment. So I don't know about you, anything beyond about a mile is about my limit. If I could ask you to step back behind the road, please. Well, that's okay. We'll fire his hand twice, and after you all the
Okay, you're good. They're almost ready. See that chain right there? Now listen.
All right.
Can you imagine about 30 or 40 just
Okay, now each position on this cannon is numbered. Each numbered position has got a corresponding set of duties and responsibilities that goes with that cannon position. The same thing is true in the modern artillery in the Army and Marine Corps today. You can go to any battery in any service, Army or Marine Corps, go to cannon number 2 position, and you do the same functions. Well, the same thing was true in the Civil War artillery. Each man was trained in those duties and responsibilities. Each man was also cross-trained so they could fill in on any position on that cannon. So as you take casualties, which is very common during the Civil War, another cannoneer could jump right in and take your place. Or if you get assigned from one unit to the next, you have the same procedures. Both North and South follow the same drill procedures. Okay, cannoneer number 1.
really?
Cannon number 1, turn
30 and 40.
Okay, cannoneer number 1 has got a very dangerous job. If you look at his hand, he's got a rammer staff. On one end, has got a thing that looks like a Q-tip. It's a sponge. His job is to, after you fire the cannon, dip that in a bucket of water, push it down the barrel, clean the barrel, put out any burning embers. His other job is after the projectile is loaded, on the other end it's got a rammer staff. His job is to push that projectile from the breech of the kill all the way back to the back so the powder bag can be punctured. If you're going to have a premature detonation, this is probably the step that's going to happen. So you're going to put your most experienced, best cannoneers right there in position number one. Then number two has got in his hand a thing called a worm. When you fire this cannon, there may be some debris left in it. Today we use aluminum foil rounds. All your powder's in there. In the Civil War, the bags are made out of cloth, flannel, wool, cotton, muslin, and sometimes when you fire it, what didn't get burned up or in the explosion, you have to pull that out so you don't have any obstructions in your barrel. We do the same thing today. Cannoneer number two's other job is to load the projectile. When we take that round from the limber chest, he's the one that actually inserts it into the barrel so number one can ram it down. Number two's got a third important job. In the event of a misfire, he takes command of this cannon, and his job is to clear this misfire. So again, you'll put one of your most experienced people in position number 1 and 2. Number three is multitask. On his left hand, you'll see a piece of leather that's called a thumb stall. He'll put that thumb stall over the vent, so as you're loading the round, it cuts off the flow of oxygen into the barrel. To have a fire or explosion, you have to have oxygen, and this helps cut off some of that flow. In his right hand, he's got a vent brush or vent pick. He wants to clean that vent to make sure there's no obstructions prior to loading the cannon. In his right hand, he's got a primer wire. Very important. Once number two rams that powder bag all the way to the back of the breech, number three takes that primer wire and punctures a hole in that powder bag. That exposes its black powder, so when you fire the friction primer, that's how you fire your cannon. His last job is to assist in misfires. He's got some tools for that. He also helps the gunner aim the cannon from left to right. If you look from the back of the trails, you'll see a stick sticking up at about a 30-degree angle. Cannoneer number three will take that and he'll move the cannon left or right, depending on how the gunner wants to adjust that cannon onto the target. Number four gets the fun job. He gets to fire the cannon. In his hand, he's got a lanyard, his hip rope with a wooden handle, and a friction primer. This is how they fired these cannons in the American Civil War. The days of Clint Eastwood smoking a stogie and lighting it, we're beyond that. Same friction primers are used today. It's nothing more than a hollow tube of copper or brass filled with a combination of finely ground black powder and mercury fulminate. And this wire's got little nicks on it, so when you pull it, it creates a spark. It ignites your mercury fulminate, sends it down through the vent hole to the powder bag that's been punctured open, and boom, that's how you fire the cannon. Cannoneer number five's got a very important and a dangerous job. Cannoneer number five carries the round from the limber up to number two so it can be loaded. They carry it in this thing called a gunner's haversack. And no, it's not designed by Gucci and it's not for fashion, but you'll put this in here to protect it. And then as they're carrying it forward, cannoneer number five will protect that round with their body. As we're going forward, because now that you know what's in this bag, guess what? The enemy does too. And the sharpshooter across that road right there, if they can shoot that round while it's being loaded, it's going to kill not only your cannoneer, but half the crew as well, and probably take out the cannon. So they're protecting this round with the body all the time. The other thing is, these rounds were expensive. In 1863, this round, a shell for a 3-inch ordnance rifle cost about $5. A lot of money in 1863 terms. Cannoneer was expensive. Number 6 and 7 have very important jobs. They work. 6 and 7 work your ammunition. They're in the back of the limber. When the gunner calls out a particular shell fuse combination and a range, they will pull out the proper shell. They'll find the fuses to go in it. If it requires a fuse, they'll have to cut the fuse a certain length so it corresponds to the range. They'll pull out the powder bag. They give both of these to cannoneer number 5 to put in that pouch to carry it forward. Now, in the artillery, unlike the infantry or cavalry, your artillerymen had to all be able to read, write, and do simple arithmetic. If you look in the back of the limber chest, when they raise the lid, that's your firing table. So when the gunner calls out a range to a target, they will lift that lid, They will see the range that corresponds to the shell counter flight that corresponds to that range. That's how they determine the fuse setting. The most important man is your gunner. He's going to be an NCO, a corporal or a sergeant. The gunner is responsible for everything that goes on this cannon crew. He's responsible for the day-to-day care and feeding, discipline, training, cross-training, morale, and everything else. The gunner frequently is the one who will determine the target to fire. Or if the target is designated, he will estimate the range of that target. He will decide what shell fuse combination is the most appropriate to have an effect on that target, and then as it comes forward before it gets loaded, he will check that. He's also responsible for aiming that cannon onto the target and elevating it up or down. This is another thing called a pendulum toss. This is the reverse sight. So when they call out an elevation, set the elevation on this pendulum toss, put it on the sight mount bracket in the back of the gun, and then it's just like sighting in on the M1 rifle. And after the gun is fire this next round, and the gun's safe, you're welcome to come forward. We'll show you how to do that. Your chief of peace is going to be a sergeant. He's responsible for everything that goes up here. Plus, he's responsible for the limbers, pulling the case on, this whole shooting match. That's going to be your most experienced sergeant. He's also trained to take my job as a section commander if I go down in combat. So between your two sergeants, your gunner and your chief of peace, those are your most experienced and best crews, most valuable members of the crew. Okay, we're going to load the cannon one more time, and then we're going to fire, and once it's clear, you can come down, and then we'll talk a little bit about ordnance and how the rounds is going to be.
1,500 yards, whoa!
Okay, the gunner's called out 1,500 yards, so number 67. We're checking the firing table, find out what fuse setting to put on there and what elevation. They pull out the round, they set the fuse. Number 5 is got in the pouch. Number 5 is carrying the fuse round up to the gunner who's checking to make sure that's what he called for. And he'll also check the fuse setting to make sure they cut the right fuse. Number 1 is swab the barrel, put out any burning embers, cool the barrel down. Number 5 is taking the round forward to number 2. We'll take out the round and load the round into the barrel so number 1 can ram it. One's now ramming around. This is the most dangerous stage of the firing demonstration. The gunner now has placed the correct elevation on his pendulum hoss. He's put on the sight bracket. He's just checking to make sure it's got the correct elevation. This point number 3 is puncturing the powder bag with that primer wire to expose it, so when you pull that friction primer, you have to clean up number 4 is turning the friction primer. Check each other, make sure we're all ready. Next firing. Cease firing, secure the piece. All right. Now, if you want to come forward, we'll talk a little bit about ammunition.